Hey guys, so there's a lot of content out there about so-called stud reversal techniques, but what if I told you there's an official LEGO element that does the trick for you in a seamless manner without using any illegal building techniques? Actually, there's a handful, but primarily I'm talking about this piece right here. Okay, so basically the first part I'm referring to is this little element over here, which has a stud on the top and a stud on the bottom. Which means if you take two plates like this one, you place it perhaps one in one corner and another in another corner. I can now go ahead and close this whole structure over with another plate, and voila. Now you have it. Stud reversing techniques in a seamless and legal manner. What do you think? Perfect, right? I just can't help but notice that this part actually opens up a whole new world of designs and angles and shapes. The next part I want to talk about is this part right over here, which as you can see also kind of has a stud on one side and a stud on another side, to put it that way. So if we go back to the same structure, I can now go and use this in the corner, for example, over here. Once again, I can also close that up, and you can see it pretty much creates the same gap. Maybe I can even hold this whole structure up at an angle like that. This whole technique is of course very similar to the ones that we've seen in the past. If I add another one here, I can now go ahead and close this whole structure over. And again, you get a kind of stud reversal technique using some simple parts. You might know that this element was actually updated at some point so that the clip is a bit wider. So if we go back to this little construction with the older part, again, we can go ahead and close this whole structure. And we have the same basic thing. In fact, using this older element means that if you were to line this up with a brick or a stud, you can see that it's actually the same width. But this is only the case with the older clips, so pretty neat, right? Using the older clip means that it doesn't quite fit, but at the same time it still works. Here you can see the same basic technique with both the older and newer clip. You can see that it works, but that the gap is slightly different in either case. The other part I want to talk about is this part over here, which you can see is a bit different. That is of course a bit different to the other element, but nonetheless you can still use this as a kind of stud reversal element. For example, if you happen to have one of these studs with holes in it, you can put that on one side, and now you have studs on two sides. Once again, meaning that you can pretty much build now on the top and the bottom. As you can see here, you can really combine all of these different parts to create different kinds of shapes and angles to your heart's delight. There's also a third part with 3 bars, which I don't have and which you can see here, which also has the same number. It can be used in a very similar manner. You may want to use that particular angle. The Star Wars Imperial Probe Droid set from 2021 is the only set to date to include all 3 components in the so-called pearl dark gray or pearl titanium color. However, even in the only other color that these parts come in, namely flat silver, these parts have only been used in 5 or 6 sets each, making these parts very high up on my underrated LEGO parts list. Go ahead and subscribe to catch all the LEGO inventory and building techniques videos that I'm working on, and see you in the next one.